CEO panics without a French translator until the janitors. 12-year-old daughter shows up and closes $1 million deal. Damn it, this can't be happening. Richard Donovan's voice echoed through the corridors of Donovan Industries like yet desperate. Roar. The 54-year-old CEO was literally sweating through his $3,000 suit as he paced back and forth in his office on the 40th floor. In exactly 45 minutes, executives from Groupe Marseille would arrive for the most important meeting in his company's history. $100 million in medical technology contracts depended on this presentation, and the professional had just called with a last-minute family emergency. Mr. Donovan, I've tried every translation serve in town, his assistant Jennifer informed him, her voice trembling. It's the eve of a holiday. No one is available. The French are inflexible. French only, no exceptions. Richard loosened his tie, feeling thewied of 200 jobs on his shoulders. His family business, built over 30 years, could collapse completely if he lost this contract. The French had already warned that they did not reschedule meetings. It was today or never. There must be someone in this city who speaks French fluently, he shouted, pounding the table. Anyone? Then a small clear voice came from the hallway. Dad, you forget your wrench on the cart. Richard stopped abruptly. Through the half-open door he saw a black girl of about 12 handing a tool to Joseph Williams, the janitor who had worked in the building for 15 years. The girl spoke to her father in perfect French, asking if he needed help with the equipment. Jennifer, Richard whispered, his eyes fixed on the girl. Did you hear that? Hear what, sir? That child? She was speaking French. Jennifer followed Herbis's gaze and frowned. Sir, that's Amelia, Joseph's daughter. She just came to pick up her father because school let out early today. Richard watched the girl more closely. Amelia Williams wore a simple school uniform, worn sneakers, and carried a patched backpack. At 12, she looked completely out of place in the sophisticated corporate environment, like a wildflower growing out of concrete. But something in her eyes caught Richard's attention. There was an intelligence there, a serenity that contrasted dramatically with her own desperate agitation. When Amelia noticed she was being watched, she waved politely and smiled with a confidence that seemed impossible for someone so young. Joseph, Richard called impulsively, stepping out of his office. Can I talk to you for a moment? The janitor approached nervously, clearly uncomfortable with his boss's sudden attention. Is there a problem, Mr. Donovan? Your daughter, does she speak French? Joseph blinked, surprised. Yes, sir. Amelia is very intelligent. She taught herself French in the internet and at the library. She had dreams of studying in France one day. Richard felt a spark of hope light up in his chest. What level of French? Well, Joseph hesitated, looking at his daughter. She talks to French tourists who visit the museum where we do volunteer work on weekends. They're always impressed. Amelia approached, realizing she was the center of the conversation. Can I help you, Mr. Donovan? She asked in perfect English, but with a formality that revealed her careful upbringing. Richard knelt down to be at her level, his mind racing. This child could be his salvation or his ruin. Betting the future of the companion, a 12-year-old girl, seemed crazy. But what choice did he have? Amelia, I need someone who speaks fluent French. For a very important meeting in 40 minutes. Would you feel comfortable helping out? Amelia's eyes sparkled with a mixture of curiosity and determination. What kind of meeting are we talking about? If this history of unlikely courage and unexpected opportunity touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to find out how a simple student was able to teach a lesson about underestimating Powell based solely on appearances. Avery. Important business meeting. Richard repeated slowly, watching Amelia with a mixture of desperation and skepticism. It would be simultaneous translation for French. Executives discussing hundo million contracts. Amelia nodded with a seriousness impressus. For her age. I understand perfectly, Mr. Donovan. I can do it. Joseph interrupted nervously. Sir, with all due respect, Amelia is just a child. It might not be appropriate. Papa Amelia interrupted him softly in French. Let me show you what I can do. Then she turned to Richard in flawless English. Mr. Donovan, you need to know that I learned French because my latter grandmother was from Haiti. She raised me speaking only French until I was 6 when she came to live with us. Richard felt a tightness in his chest. The girl had lost her grandmother just as he had lost his father when he was the same age, but his business mind still resisted the idea. Amelia, this meeting is worth the future of the company. If something goes wrong, then you've lost everything, she replied with devastatingly simple logic. But if it goes right, you've gained everything. What's the real difference between trading with me or giving up completely? Jennifer approached discreetly. Mr. Donovan, the French have just confirmed that they'll be here in 35 minutes. And security says there are reporters from Financial Times in the lobby. If this meeting fails publicly, Richard ran his hand through his hair, feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders. His family business, built by his Italian immigrant grandfather, was literally in the hands of a 12-year-old black girl. The irony was cruel. He had always prided himself on being a progressive employer. But now that Hireli needed to trust someone outside his usual circle, he felt his unconscious prejudices rising. Amelia, he said finally, you understand that these men are extremely demanding? They just professional translators until they break them. They can ask complex technical questions. I know, she replied calmly. I've read about Group Marseilles Line. They're known for buying difficult, but also for respect and genuine competence. Richard blinked in surprise. You researched them? When Dad told me there was an important meeting today, I was curious and did some research in the school library during break. Amelia smiled slightly. I learned that the CEO, Mr. Dubachi, lost his wife 12 years ago in a medical accident that could have been prevented with better technology. That's why he invests heavily in medical innovation. Joseph looked at his daughter with pride and surprise. Even he didn't know Amelia had researched the visitors. Mr. Donovan, Jennifer whispered urgently. A message just came in from the French. They're stuck in traffic and will be here in 20 minutes. Richard felt the panic return. 20 minutes to turn a 12-year-old girl into a professional translator or watch his company collapse in front of reporters and investors. Is there anything else I should know about you, Amelia? He asked, desperate for any sign that he wasn't making the biggest mistake of his career. Amelia hesitated for a moment, exchanging glances with her father. Well, I also speak German and Spanish. And I've been participating in debate competitions at school in French. I won 3 first places this year. Debate. Richard sat up straight. What kind of debate? Discussions about business ethics, corporate social responsibility, technological innovation. Amelia listed casually. My teacher says I have a knack for logical argumentation and presenting complex ideas. Richard looked at her in amazement. This was no ordinary child pretending to know French. She was a little intellectual who had unwittingly been preparing for this moment for years. Joseph Richard turned to the janitor. Why didn't you ever tell Method your daughter was so exceptional? Joseph looked down embarrassed. Mr. Donovan, you've known my daughter for years, but you never asked about her. Tui, we're just part of the furniture. The remark cut deep. Richard realized that he really did see Joseph as an invisible employee, efficient, but irrelevant. He had never taken an interest in his personal or family life, and now he discovered that this humbleman had raised an extraordinary daughter right under his nose. "Mr. Donovan," Amelia said softly, "you're worried because I'm young and black, or any two?" The direct question left him speechless. How had a 12-year-old girl identified the core of his fears so accurately? It's not that. It's okay," she interrupted him gently. "I understand perfectly. But do you know what the advantage of being underestimated is? You can surprise everyone." As Richard struggled with his inner prejudices and the relentless clock, something in Amelia's determined gaze began to awaken a feeling he hadn't felt in years. The same spark of daring his grandfather had when he bet everything on a company no one believed would work. 15 minutes, Mr. Donovan, Jennifer announced, her voice heavy with tension as she watched Richard, still paralyzed by indecision. "Security has confirmed that the French executives have just arrived in the parking lot." Richard glanced at Amelia, who stood calmly beside her father. A thief discussing million-dollar contracts was a routine part of her 12-year-old life. Something about that serenity bothered him. It was almost as if she had been waiting for this opportunity for a long time. "Amelia," he said hesitantly, "do you really understand the magnitude of what we're discussing here? If something goes wrong, 200 families lose their jobs before Christmas. I understand perfectly." "Mr. Donovan," she replied with disconcertingly, "but may I ask a question? Why are you more concerned with my age and appearance than my qualifications?" The direct question left him speechless. Joseph shifted uncomfortably, clearly proud of his daughter's courage, but concerned about her boldness. "Mr. Donovan," Jennifer interrupted, stepping closer, "can I speak with you privately?" Richard followed her a few steps, lowering his voice. "Jennifer, this is crazy, betting everything on occult." "With all due respect, sir," Jennifer interrupted, "something Shirley did in 15 years of employment. It grew up in the same neighborhood as Joseph and Amelia. I've known that family for years. Amelia is no ordinary child." Richard frowned, surprised. "What do you mean?" "She won a full scholarship to Riverside Academy, the most competitive prep school in the city. At the age of 10, she competes in academic debate tournaments against high school students and wins regularly." Jennifer looked him straight in the eye. "Mr. Donovan, Amelia Williams is a genius, and we're wasting her because she doesn't look like what we expect a genius to look like." Richard felt the weight off that revelation. Riverside Academy cost $40,000 a year and had a 5-year waiting list. How had a working-class family gotten a full scholarship? "There's more," Jennifer continued. "Amelia also speaks Mandarin and Arabic. She teaches French to immigrants on weekends at the local church. Voluntarily 12 minutes," shouted an assistant from the hallway. Richard turned to Amelia, who had listened to the entire conversation without flinching. "Why didn't you ever mention any of this?" "Because you never asked," she replied simply. "For years you greeted my father politely, but you never showed any real interest in getting to know our family. To you, we were just part of the scenario." The observation cut deep, echoing Joseph's words from minutes earlier. Richard realized that he had systematically underestimated the people around him based purely on appearances and unconscious biases. "Amelia," he said, his voice changing in tone, "I feel entrusting this meeting to you. You need to know you can handle that pressure. These executives are known for testing translators until they break. They ask trick questions, change subjects abruptly, and use specific technical jargon." "I know," she replied calmly. "I read about their tactics online. Mr. Dubachi often asks questions about European medical regulations to test competence. Mr. Laurent likes to use regional French idioms to confuse American translators." Richard blinked, impressed. You research them individually during lunch at school. I also studied Groupe Marseille's annual reports for the last 3 years, their recent acquisitions, and the technical presentions they usually require. Amelia smiled slightly. Papa always taught me that preparation is respect. Joseph nodded proudly. My daughter never does anything halfway, Mr. Donovan. 10 minutes. Echoed again down the hall. Jennifer approached with a folder. Mr. Donovan, I've prepared executive summaries in French about our technology just in case if Amelia can manage with it. Technical vocabulary. May I see them? Amelia interrupted politely. Jennifer handed her the documents. Amelia scanned them quickly, her eyes darting across the pages with impressive speed. After 2 minutes, she looked up. There are a few terminologies here, she said diplomatically. On page 3, intelligence artificial ethical would be more accurate assistance diagnostic paria. And on page 5, the term for predictive analysis is a little outdated. Jennifer and Richard exchanged interest glances. A 12-year-old was correcting technical documents prepared by professional translators. How do you know that? Richard asked, his voice betraying a mixture of admiration and disbelief. My grandmother worked in a hospital in Port-au-Prince before she came to the United States. She taught me a lot about medical terminology in French. Amelia paused, her eyes shining with a fond memory. She always said that the right words can save lives, so it was important to know them perfectly. 8 minutes. Richard made a decision that would change his life forever. Amelia, you're hired. But I need you to understand one thing. If these men sense any weakness, they will exploit it mercilessly. It's not personal. It's French business. I understand, Mr. Donovan, she replied with that disconcerting serenity. But can I give you some advice? Stop worrying about what they'll think of me and start focusing on why your technology can save lives. Genuine passion is universal in any language. As they walked toward the conference room, Richard noticed that something extraordinary happening. Amelia's calm presence was transforming his own anxiety into determination. For the first time in weeks, he wasn't thinking about what could go wrong, but what could go right. Mr. Donovan, Amelia said softly as they walked. There's something you need to know about this meeting. Something that could completely change how you approach these executives. Richard stopped abruptly. What do you mean? 5 minutes. Amelia's eyes shone with a confidence that seemed impossible for her age. As if she knew something that would turn this desperate eating into something completely different, something that no adult in the company had considered, but that a brilliant young girl had discovered in her secret research on the most powerful men in the French medical industry. Mr. Donovan, Amelia said calmly as they entered the conference room. Mr. Dubos lost his 12-year-old daughter in a medical accident 2 years ago. Her name was Amelia, just like me, but in French. Richard stopped abruptly. How did you know that? I researched beyond Phoebusina's reports. I read obituaries, newspaper articles, personal interviews. Amelia adjusted her school bag. Mr. Dubozzi doesn't just invest in medical technology. He seeks redemption. He wants to save other children because Heckle didn't save his own daughter. 3 minutes. Richard felt something fundamental shifting in his perspective. He was no longer seeing a child trying to help a desperate adult. He was seeing a young strategist who had prepared better for this meeting than he had. The elevator doors opened with a sound that echoed like a bell of destiny. Mr. Dubos emerged first, a distinguished 62-year-old man with perfectly combed gray hair, Wearing a dark gray suit that cost more than Joseph's annual salary. At his side, Mr. Laurent Rousseau, younger but equally imposing, carried an Italian leather briefcase and the expression of someone accustomed to disappointing ill-prepared Americans. Richard took a deep breath and approached them. "Gentlemen, welcome to Donovan Industries. I am good morning, MESSERS.DUBOCE and Rousseau." Amelia interrupted Slee in French, stepping forward with the confidence of an experienced etaplat. "I am Amelia Williams and I will be your interpreter today. I hope your flight from Paris was good, and that you were able to rest despite the jet lag. The silence that followed was absolute. The two French executives were completely paralyzed, their expression changing from professional skepticism to utter amazement. Not only because of the girl's perfect fluency, but because of diplomatic elegance of her presentation and the genuine concern she showed. "My God," Dubachi whispered in French, his eyes filling with unexpected tears. "Your accent, it's perfect. Where did you learn to speak like that?" Amelia smiled gently. "My grandmother was from Haiti, sir. She raised me speaking French until I was 6 years old. She always said that French was the language of the heart." Richard watched fascinated as something extraordinary happened. Dubachi slowly knelt down until he was level with Amelia, his hands trembling slightly. "What is your name, my child?" "Amelie, sir, like your daughter." The world stopped. Dubachi closed his eyes, breathing deeply. When he opened them again, there was a humanity there that Richard had never expected to see in such a powerful executive. "Mr. Donovan," Dubachi said in English heavy with emotion, "in 25 years of international business, I have never met a translator so young and so well prepared. But there is something more important here than business." Rousseau, equally moved, added, "This child has treated us with more respect and care in 2 minutes than many adults show in entire meetings." Richard felt his worldview shatter and rebuild simultaneously. For 40 minutes, as Amelia translated very technical nuance of the presentation with surgical precision, he watched a transformation he would never forget. It wasn't just translation. Amelia was able to capture the emotions behind the words, the unspoken fears, the hidden hopes. When Dubachi asked complex questions about ethics in artificial intelligence, she didn't just translate. She contextualized, explained, humanized. Mr. Dubachi is asking if our technology can prevent the diagnostic errors that took his daughter away from him, Amelia translated softly, her words laden with genuine compassion. That's when Richard realized he wasn't just watching a business meeting. He was witnessing a session of emotional healing conducted by a 12-year-old girl who understood pain in a way that privileged adults could never comprehend. "Our technology," Richard replied, looking directly at Dubachi, "exists to ensure that no parent ever has to go through what you went through." Amelia translated, but added something of her own. "And I can promise you, sir, that every time the technology saves a child, your homily will live on through that act of love." Dubachi broke down in tears. A man who controlled $100 million, crying openly in a conference room because a child had found the world's expensive therapists had never been able to offer him. "Mr. Donovan," Duba said finally, wiping his eyes, "we're not going to invest just the $100 million we discussed." Richard felt his heart race. "We'll invest $200 million, and we want Amelie to be our official ambassador for this project." Russell nodded vigorously. "This child understands the true purpose of medical technology in a way that adult executives take years to learn." Richard looked at Amelia, who remained calmly seated in her chair as if securing Fellergest investment in the company's history was routine. "There is one condition," Dubachi continued. "We want to establish a comprehensive educational fund for Amelie University exchange program in France." Everything paid for. This child should not be limited by financial circumstances. Joseph, who had watched everything in absolute silence, finally spoke. Gentlemen, I don't know what to say. Papa, Amelia said softly in English. Remember how Mama always said that God put special people in our path at the right moments? I think today we have all been those special people for each other. As the contracts were signed and champagne was served, Richard realized something that would keep him awake for weeks. For years he had walked down the hill ignoring Joseph and Amelia, seeing them as invisible parts of the corporate landscape. He never imagined that he was ignoring the very person who would save his company and change his perspective in what it really meant to recognize it. At the end of the meeting, as French said their goodbyes with warm hugs for Amelia, Dubachi whispered to Richard, "Sir, you didn't just hire a translator today. You discovered a treasure that was hidden right in front of you. But the biggest revelation was yet to come." Because while everyone celebrated the unexpected success, something in Amelia's bright eye suggested that this meeting was just the beginning of an even bigger story. A story that would show the whole world the price of underestimating people based solely on appearances. 6 months later, the transformation at Donovan Industries was visible from the moment Tanyan entered the building. The portrait of Amelia Williams, now 13, smiled from the main wall of the lobby as the youngest corporate ambassador in American history. Next to a gold plaque. Innovation and inclusion, recognizing talent where we least expect it. Richard watched from his office window as Amelia, the tour for Japanese executive, entered in expanding the project to Asia. Her fluency in Japanese, discovered only the week before, had impressed the visitors so much that they decided to double their initial investment. "It's surreal, isn't it?" Jennifer commented, approaching with the quarterly reports. "The company has grown 400% since that meeting. Amelia has become a case study at Harvard, MIT, and Stanford." Richard nodded, still processing how a child had demolished decades of unconscious prejudice in a single afternoon. What had begun as desperation had turned into the most profound revolution his company had ever experienced. "Mr. Donovan," Amelia's voice echoed through the intercom. "The Toyota executives would like to discuss implanting the technology in Tokyo. Can I schedule that for tomorrow?" "Sure, Amelia, and thank you." The routine had changed completely. Joseph was no longer just the invisible janitor. Richard had promoted him to operations supervisor, finally recognizing that the man who had raised an extraordinary daughter possessed leadership skills that had been systematically ignored for years. Dad always said that people only see what they want to see, Amelia had explained during an interview on the country's most watched morning show. But when you stop judging by labels and start listening to hearts, you discover incredible talents in unexpected places. The program had generated millions of views, turning Amelia into a global symbol of how talent is wasted when we limit our vision with prejudice. Richard recalled the call he had received from Dubos the week before. "Mr. Donovan, our hospital in Lyon has saved 120 children using your technology. Emily taught you that investing in people means investing in miracles." Even more impressive was how Amelia remained completely unchanged by her success. Every day after her duties as an ambassador, she returned home to the same neighborhood, helped Joseph with the housework, and continued teaching French to immigrants at the local church. "Money is just a tool," she had explained to the Forbes reporter who wanted to understand how a teenager managed a $2 million education fund. "If you don't use a tool to build something good, it's useless." The interview had gone viral, inspiring hundreds of American companies to evaluate how they identified and developed talent within their own organizations. That afternoon, Richard received an unexpected visitor. Charles Hampton, CEO of rival Morrison Corp., was waiting nervously in the lobby. Hampton had lost 3 major contracts to Donovan Industries in recent months, all negotiated directly by Amelia. Richard, Hampton said, clearly uncomfortable. I have to admit that I completely underestimated what you've built here. My company has lost talent for years because we focus solely on pedigrees and appearances. Richard smiled, remembering how he himself had thought just 6 months earlier. Charles, what I've discovered is that true talent grows everywhere. We just need to stop looking where we've always looked. Hampton sighed, I'd like to propose a partnership. We want Amelia to help us review our hiring and talent identification processes. We're willing to pay whatever it takes. I'll ask her, Richard replied. But, knowing Amelia, she'd probably want you to invest in educational programs for underserved communities. That's exactly what happened. Amelia agreed to consult for Morrison Corp., but only if they created a $5 million scholarship fund for young people from inner-city communities. Everyone has an incredible story. Amelia explained to Hampton during their first meeting. The difference is who has the opportunity to tell that story and who has the opportunity to be heard. 6 months after that life-changing meeting, as Richard watched Amelia explain advanced concepts of artificial intelligence to executives from around the world, he realized he had learned the most valuable lesson of his career. True success doesn't come from finding people who are like us, but from recognizing greatness in places we never thought to look. Joseph appeared at the door, now wearing his new supervisor's uniform. Mr. Donovan, Amelia asked me to remind you about the meeting with the Chinese investors at 3 o'clock. She has reviewed all the technical documents in Mandarin. Richard shook his head, laughing. Joseph, can I ask you a question? How did you raise such an extraordinary daughter? Joseph smiled proudly. Mr. Donovan, Amelia has always been this way. The difference is that no someone is paying attention. As he watched Amelia lead yet another meeting that would generate millions in contracts, Richard realized that desperate meeting 6 months ago hadn't just saved his company, it had saved his ability to truly see the people around him. The best part, Amelia was just getting started. At 13, she was already planning to start her own corporate inclusion consulting firm with a simple mission to help companies discover talent that's right in front of them, but they haven't learned to see yet. If this story of missed opportunities and hidden talent touched your heart, subscribe to the channel to discover more stories about how true success happens when we stop judging and start really seeing the extraordinary people who walk alongside us every day.